if there was one reason to join, that does, there's that. So
I think you had me at US market.
and honestly, that might be that. I should probably just shut my mouth.
I'm with Chris. Is it Christopher or Chris?
Either. I answer to either.
How do most Chris?
Yeah,
Chris Dyson.
correct.
I'm with Chris Dyson, international man of mystery, broker from Beverly Hills, British guy,
Right.
and the founder of the NLS.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, so before we go into all the nitty gritty about yourself, your background, etc.,
Yeah.
just tell me, what is the NLS?
Well, the NLS is a portal that we built for the US, and it's a portal that we built to compete with the US MLSs. And when I came to Spain a couple of years ago, I noticed that the portal and MLS market here lacked regulation, it lacked consolidation, it lacked accuracy, and I wanted to repurpose our platform that we built for the US to help solve some of those problems for Spanish brokers. So it's a B2B2C MLS portal.
So an MLS is a multi-listing system, which is basically here in the Costa del Sol, we have things like Marbella, like WeSales Online, and there's a couple of others. And this is an agent-to-agent portal. This is where the portal word comes in, right?
Yep.
Where they get to share listings and basically interact with each other.
Correct.
Correct? So, okay. And the space here is fairly, I could say saturated, I guess, as in for the number of agents, is pretty consolidated. 2 main MLSs and a few others dotted around. Why? Just tell me, what is it? Like, what? Let's just go into it. What are you fixing with NLS? As far as I understand it, you're basically fixing everything apart from world hunger and war.
Correct.
So it seems,
the whole thing.
So you're taking a big bite out of this cherry. So just tell me, what is it you're fixing? And then
So
we'll go into
look, one of the things that I think is important as an agent, if you're going to do your job efficiently and effectively, is you have to have access to the full information of what's available. First and foremost, when you're dealing with clients, you have to be able to access what's available. Otherwise, you can't do the job, in an effective and efficient way. And that just doesn't exist. And second of all, being able to speak to the principal agent as a matter of course, I think is critical. And the fact that those two things don't exist, I think makes life difficult for agents here.
So when you say the principal agent, you mean the main listing agent?
Main listing agent.
What about when there's multiple?
That's fine. They're still the main listing agent.
Right.
What I'm saying is the guys that get in the middle who don't have the mandate from the seller, who still are allowed to post both B2B and B2C on these portals. I think that hurts the seller. I think it hurts the buyers, and I think it hurts, most importantly, the agents who've worked hard to get that information and should get those leads and information.
So your platform is basically a quality control platform for listings.
Correct.
So that if an agent is looking for a listing for one of their buyers, they can see that the information that is available is accurate, up to date, and they can decide, they can pick who has the listing.
Correct.
Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And what else does it do? Because there are a few things that
there's a lot of things that it does. Yeah. Look, there's I think one of the most interesting things that it does, which is how we actually founded the company, which I can, we actually, this company started as the PLS.com.
Who's we?
So I have Mauricio Umansky, who's one of the most significant guys in our industry, is my main partner.
For the folk here in Europe.
Yeah.
He's the guy from Buying Beverly Hills Netflix series. Is also the husband of the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills.
Correct.
So he owns the agency, which we have one here in Marbella.
That's right.
And you, just to tie the thing in, is you worked with the agency in Beverly Hills as an agent yourself?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's why you have a connection to Umansky.
Correct. Yeah.
Right, so carry on with the PLS.
So look, I've been over there now for 20 years and worked with Mauricio for the last, I think, coming on to 15, nearly. And Bo's an incredible guy, obviously. He was, I think, recently voted 35th most influential person in our industry. And he brings an incredible amount to the table, both from expertise and the light that he can shine on this as well, obviously. And he's a great guy. So when I had the idea to create this, which was back in 2017, I think. So in LA and in Beverly Hills especially, there's a lot of sellers that demand discretion. and they don't necessarily want their house being marketed out into the public. Because when you put it on the MLS portals in the US, it immediately becomes public record. The address is public record and searchable, and it goes everywhere. And if you're in the public eye, sometimes you may not want to have to do that. So back then, I would get hundreds of emails every week from agents saying, I've got this or I'm looking for that, but there was nowhere to look for it when you wanted it. And so I built basically an MLS for pocket listings, a private gated walled garden, I should say, where the information stays within the agent community. So sellers get discretion and exposure. And the interesting thing with that, Alfredo, is that it's with the seller's consent, but also you are then able to give agents access to information that their buyers don't have, which makes them more valuable. So a big problem now, both I think here and everywhere, is that buyers are much more sophisticated, they're much more informed, and a lot of times they'll say, well, why do I need an agent? Everything's available online. I'm just going to go and look for it there. And I think one of the things that we try to do and always try to do with this portal is give agents value and relevance. And by, as I say, collating this information discreetly, you're then giving the members access to stuff that their buyers don't have. So when a buyer turns around and says, why do I need you? You can say, because you haven't got access to this. And so that's one of the, I'd say, core principles of what we were trying to do is trying to future-proof, if you like, the agent community. So, and that's still very much a core of what the platform is. Now, from 2017 to 2025, a lot's happened. And so, and again, there's not as much I can talk about this because we were scaling at a hell of a rate in the US, and we were a genuine threat to the MLSs in the US. And NAR passed a law called Clear Cooperation Policy in 2019.
This is the National Association of Realtors.
Correct. So that's the largest trade union.
Million members, right? Something like that.
1.5 or
okay.
Between 1.3 and 1.5,
okay.
depending on what you read. Sorry. That's okay. And so it's the largest trade union in the country, and they basically are responsible for making the rules for how we have to operate underneath that umbrella. And they passed this law in 2019, we believe, to squash our business, which they did. And so that is why we are suing. And that's as I say. So when we're talking about the difference between the US and Spain, the US is not perfect at all. But what I've tried to do with this platform for here is try and bring the good bits, and the bits that I feel like help us very much as agents in the US and eradicate the bad bits.
So at the moment,
yeah,
the primary value of your platform, the NLS,
yes,
is to be a reliable depository of listings for agents.
That's the very first thing that's done. Okay. Yeah, that's the initial.
So at the moment, it's not functioning, should we say, as a property portal in the terms of an idealista or something like that. No, because you're not currently bringing in millions of visitors from buyers.
Look, yeah, there's a two-step process to that, very deliberate. There's no point. Again, something that we can do with this that none of the other portals down here can do is we can deliver the American market. Okay, so we can shine a very bright light on the agents and on the properties to the US buyers, which are growing annually here in Marbella and probably will continue to do so, as time goes on. So that's one of our big USPs, is that we're going to be able to send those leads to the agents here. However, we don't want to burn that bridge in terms of pointing traffic at the site if there's not a critical mass of things. So we're just starting. Look, this is the start. This is the beginning. I mean, I came here 2 years ago, and when I started speaking to some of my old friends who were here, I was here for 6 years and loved it. And Marbella's always been one of my favorite places on the planet and continues to be so. I think it's getting better. Everything's getting better here. Seeing what some of the developers are doing here, it reminds me of, it feels like you're dovetailing almost Los Angeles like 10 years ago. And that I see the same sort of patterns and the same improvements and the same price points and the ascensions with that. And so, but I was flawed, because I almost said it as a joke. Like when I was here in 2001, 2, 3, 4, 5, we didn't have really an MLS. And so I almost said it in passing to someone, have you got an MLS yet? And they're like, well, kind of. We've got this one over here that does this, that one over there does that. And, you've got to kind of see which commission they're paying to see who's the listing agent. So it takes me half a day to try and sort out my listings. I'm like, hang on, wait, stop. What are you talking about? Like, how is that possible? And so that's when I then went back. And then I started looking at, the bigger portals. And look, I don't like talking negatively about other businesses. Business is tough. And I'm very much a free market kind of guy. And, but I couldn't believe, you see the same listing listed over and over and over and over again. And I know it's not their listing because I know whose listing it is. And I'm thinking, well, why is he okay with that? Like, I believe that if it's your listing, it should be your lead. When you're a buyer and you go to these platforms, part of the gold, if you like, of having a listing and having that relationship with the seller is that the leads come in. That's how you grow your business. And so the fact that other agents could pay these portals to place their property at a higher position and get those leads, that's just something. Now, look, if you believe in that, great. There's portals that do it, but we don't believe in that. So I went back to LA and I said to the guys, everyone freeze. We need to repurpose this to function in Spain and try and, bring some regulation and some, accuracy of the aggregation of the data. And first and foremost, give the agents an experience as well where the UX in the back end has much more functionality, from being able to aggregate and search for buyers wants as well is something which is huge. Americans love that. People love our pocket listing functionality because it helps you test price points as well. When you sit down with a seller, every seller thinks their house is worth more than you think it's worth. And so trying to bring it to market at a price which is more aggressive is key, or in line with what you think the value is. And so we had lots of the US agents which would use our site to test price points. And they would say to the seller, well, look, let's put it to the agent community for 2 weeks. And if we sell at your number, I am delighted to be wrong. But if it isn't, we're going to put it on the MLS at my number.
I don't know the answer to this question, but isn't that already the case here, that sort of thing? I mean, don't they already put things on the MLSs at a price that the seller says?
But then you get days on market. So, and then it looks stale. So if you come on too high, you can never price a property too low, but you can price it too high. I say never. In the US we have it's very the information is accurate because of the regulation. So you know what you're seeing. But once it goes on to these public portals, it's then you get days on market, and anytime if a house sits for more than 2, 3, 4 weeks, people start thinking, well, what's wrong with it?
Right.
And so if you come on too high and then you start accumulating those days on the market, that can be a problem. So that's a big thing that agents try to avoid.
You mentioned critical mass, but just tell me, who have you got at the moment? You got a few agencies already on the system, right?
We do. I mean, look, I'm lucky. I have a lot of very strong relationships with who I consider the best guys down here, and they were the first guys that I approached, and everybody, thank God, was very enthusiastic about what we were doing.
And who do you have at the moment? Just name some.
Well, we have Solvir, Panorama, we have Dremelia, we have Engel and Volkers, Home Run Brokers, Norma Frank, Berkshire Hathaway, the agency. Goodness, I mean, they're probably the top ones.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we've got, I think, just under 2,000 listings, about 7 billion in value on there right now, which is there. So
would I be right to say that at the very least, it allows you to have a place for yourselves in the States to use if you want to sell something in Marbella to somebody in Beverly Hills?
100%.
Right?
Oh, no, 100%.
So it is, I mean, like, I know you're not trying to market it this way, but looking at it in its brass basis, it's kind of like, this is, get on here. They don't have millions of visits, but they have got all the high net worths in Beverly Hills and California and the rest of the States. And now that the agency has expanded throughout the whole States and across Europe, that network is actually, those eyes are much broader than they used to be.
Alfred, honestly, it's a really big value add that I think that we can deliver above and beyond what.
And haven't you been tempted to market it as the sort of the North American sort of?
Well, if you
MLS.
look at it, we call it your key to the States. I mean, it's again, that is absolutely the plan. And so, but again, we don't want to turn on that. Like, again, I'm very fortunate that not just Mauricio, but the relationships that we have over there, we're able to drive a lot of traffic and shine a very, very bright light. And so, but we don't want to waste that if they get there and there's not enough to see.
Right. And
So-
you need that information to be accurate for your own purposes over there anyway.
Agreed.
So it's kind of like, we have to do this anyway. Let's just do it for everybody.
That's right. And candidly, that's why it's free. You know, I mean, it's a free service now for like we don't want to put anything in the way of agents wanting to join. And it'll be free for as long as it needs to be. Like, one of the things that I'm not here to do is just to try and collect credit card numbers and then, you know.
Yeah, I mean, that was going to be my question. What's in it for you? But I'm kind of understanding that now. That makes sense, that there is a commercial benefit to.
We're not a charity.
Yeah,
But,
no,
I mean,
exactly.
you know,
Nobody is.
but at the same time, I am very motivated to build a business that agents here embrace and that they love and that they celebrate and they go, thank God. And they are, and again, it gives them tools that make them better, and it gives them tools that helps them make more money, and it gives them tools to be more valuable to their clients. That is 100% what it's designed to do.
Okay, let's take a few steps back now.
Yeah.
There are a few MLSs kind of coming into the market at the moment. Mostly trying to also solve world hunger and war and stuff like that, as in major big things that I think the other MLSs are already here will probably come back at me right now and say, our system does that too. It's just there's no enforcement. So that must be quite a labor-intensive thing from your side, no? How do you police?
So it's and well, nobody else does do this. And this is how this is in the States. This is how we had to do it. You had to show a listing agreement. You have to show that you are the listing agent, and that was approved manually. And that's when the property gets published. So we can, and by the way, we have a great relationship with the guys in Immobiliaria. We partner with them.
Marbella.
Yeah, and they, you know, through their API and on our XML feed, you know, their properties get imported, and so we're certainly not looking to replace. We want to complement.
It's an add-on.
Yeah, and so, but no one else. Before a property is published on the NLS, you have to show that you're the listing agent. Right, you have to show a listing contract with the seller, not a marketing, not a collaborating contract. A list, and you can if there's 4 listing agents, which I know, and that's another thing that we can talk about is why sellers want to have open listings and not exclusive listings, which I think is crazy. But again, that's just we can debate that. But you have to be the listing agent, and by doing that, you know, our ultimate promise to the buyer is that we'll always connect you to the listing agent. Now, if you want to go with X and not Y because X has got a better profile and they've got more properties, they've got more sold properties, which is what we allow you to do as well at the front end, where the B2C, where the consumers can search. And by the way, it's one click and you're in as well. So we've modeled this on best practices from, you know, arguably the most significant portals on the planet. And so we're trying to give a similar user experience to the user.
Just ballpark figure, how much money has got into this overall, including, obviously this is a byproduct of something you already did.
Lots of zeros.
We're talking
Lots of zeros.
Okay.
Lots of zeros.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember listening to a podcast that a real estate guy in the States called Tom Ferry. No doubt you'll know.
It's the man.
Yeah, he was talking to Umansky actually.
Yeah.
And about the setup of the agency and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember something that stuck with me, and I can't remember verbatim what they said, but it was something to the degree of saying that Umansky was saying that he built a CRM, and he thought it would cost $250,000, but it cost way more. And when I heard that, I thought that's like 2 zeros more than what most agencies would even think about investing.
Well, look, I'll tell you this. I would argue, I would take the Pepsi challenge with any portal and say that we're the most, from a functionality standpoint, we're the most powerful platform in the industry. This platform does more things than any other platform does. So it's, again, like, first and foremost, I'm an agent, and I hope a pretty good one, you know.
I want to go to that, actually. Yeah, I want to go to that.
Yeah, and so I've built this specifically, and you're absolutely right. If you've got into tech and you start to do it, and they're really difficult things there's a lot going on. Show it here, don't show it there. Show it in meters, not in square footage. You know, the search algorithms, the AI algorithms that we have for matching buyers with sellers as well. When, you know, sellers can search to see which agent's got the right buyer for their house as well. That's something that no other portal on the planet does, and it's game changing. Game changing. So that's, you know, if there was one reason to join, that does, you know, there's that. So.
I think you had me at US Market.
And honestly, that might be that. I should probably just shut my mouth. The problem is we've done so much with this thing that it's trying to condense it down into a friendly media soundbite. But delivering the US market, I think, is what we're.
And interesting that the agency is expanding throughout the world, isn't it? I mean, it's expanded aggressively throughout the States and in Europe.
Yeah.
It's got Mallorca, it's got Portugal, and a bunch of other places. So,
yeah.
So those eyes are getting broader, aren't they?
Well, look, rising tide lifts all ships, and I'm very proud to be part of the agency. Candidly, I think it's the most compelling brokerage infrastructure, certainly in the industry that we built in the US. And because of that, we can again leverage our relationships there to help drive traffic from the US. And again, every time I'm here, I hear more and more American accents, and I come out here a lot, obviously, and I see more and more posts on social media from Americans, and I see more and more people placing Marbella with the Capris and the South of France's, and it being on those lists that didn't happen 5 years ago. And again, with everything that's happening here, I think that's only going to get bigger and better.
Now let's talk about you a little bit. So you're an agent.
Correct.
Tell me about that. Like, how long have you been doing it, et cetera, et cetera. Let's just go back. Let's wind it right back.
So my parents bought a house in Nueva Andalusia in 2000, and I came out for a weekend.
When you were like 15, probably, right?
What was I? I was 21, I think, or 22. And I was 22. And I got basically the guy that was doing the conveyancing. I mean, but first of all, we met in the clubhouse at Las Brisas, and I'm a golfer, and I've never been here before. I remember driving down the Golden Mile with the palm trees, and then we get to I get goosebumps thinking about it. I'm going, what is this place? And I was living in Leeds at the time, making 100 phone calls a day for a recruitment firm, which is what you did when you don't know what you're going to do. Go and be a recruitment officer in the UK at least. And I'd been doing that for 7 or 8 months. And I was actually starting to find my feet with it. And then I came out here, and it was a guy called Stephen Granville. I don't know if you remember Stephen. He's like, you should come out here. It's all going off. People are,
When was this again?
2000.
So this is 8 years before the crash.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
tell me more.
I will. So I got introduced to the guys at Ocean Estates and Alistair, Allison, Clive, and I joined that team when I think there was about 35 people when they had the office in Cortijo Blanco there. And by 2002-3, I think at that time we were doing like 2,000 units, a year. My first year I was the top salesperson. Second year they made me a manager, and I was the top manager. And then they sent me to the Costa Blanca to go and run the Costa Blanca office when I was like 25. We doubled sales there in that year. And then I came back to Marbella, and I loved it. And I still love it. But I was young, I was ambitious, and I wanted to go and test, in a bigger and better market. I was going to go to London, and I went to Los Angeles with my friend, a guy called Bobby Brown.
Bobby Brown.
Yeah. Who's his story is unbelievable, but that's a different podcast. And when I was in LA, I got chatting with one of the top brokers there, and she basically offered me a job doing the sales and marketing for this $2 billion development in downtown.
So this is before Umansky set up the agency.
Yeah, yeah.
Way before, right?
Yeah. So
tell me about that then. So tell me about that experience.
So I started working for this woman. Her name was Valerie Fitzgerald, and I owe her everything. Honestly, I mean, she was amazing. She was able to sponsor me to be there, so I was able to get visas. I was able to, because it's really difficult to move to the US,
especially now.
It's impossible now. You just got to get married. But I say it's impossible. It's really tough. It's really, really tough, and it was back then. And so, but I was able to qualify for a visa, which gave me a green card and all that stuff. So I started working with Coldwell Banker in Beverly Hills on Cannon Drive. And I was very fortunate that I got introduced and became part of a group of English guys out there who were really, really significant guys. And through that network, because in the States as well, you've got to generate all your own business. Like, nobody's at the top giving you leads. You've got to go and get it. Now, you do get more of the pie, rightly so, but you have to do everything.
What sort of commission typically would be the commission if you get self-generated business there? Would you say
anywhere from, depending on how good you are, you can get anywhere from 60 to 80.
Okay,
maybe 85.
That's a chunk
if you're really doing well. So, but I would say on average 75. The agent, but basically the model here, they've turned it on its head, roughly. Like
Right.
obviously not an
Yeah, I
exact
think
science.
there's a company called Strand here that tried to do that
Yeah.
when they were out and do like 70-30 or 70
Yeah.
80-20, that sort of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so Karen, so
So
you're working with this.
so I became I started to deal with a lot of the Brits that came out, like the famous guys that were coming out either in TV, sports, entertainment, business. I was very fortunate to get introduced to a lot of those guys. And
Any names you can drop?
I don't really want to mention
no?
names. No,
Okay.
don't want to mention names. But I will tell you this. So when I was out there, you know, you look at you'd go onto the MLS and you'd stick no price, and you'd go and look at all the highest priced properties, the real estate porn that we call it. And I'd be looking at all these houses, and then at the bottom it'd have the listing agent, and it was Mauricio Umansky, Mauricio Umansky, Mauricio Umansky. I'm going, who the is this guy? It's got everything, best houses. And at the time, you know, he was I think he was like the top guy in California, third in the country, something like that. And I brought a pretty significant, a pretty significant guy to one of his listings, and I could see he was like, "What are you doing with him? Like, who's this guy? And how's he got him?" And so when he set up the agency a couple of years after that, which I think was 2010, he approached me and he was like, "Look, we're setting up this new firm, and we'd love you to be a part of it." And at the time, I was working for Keller Williams at the time, and for various reasons, I couldn't really leave. But about, I can tell you this. So I was representing. This is in the public eye, so I can say this. A guy called Kelsey Grammer.
Oh, the Fraser.
Yeah.
Right.
And Kelsey had a $25 million house in Malibu, which was stunning. And Kelsey's like, "Chris, you know, I want you to list the house, but you can't have that house with that brand." So I was like, "Okay, well, Mauricio's got this brand over here that he's setting up, and it's got really good people. What do you think?" He's like, "Yeah, that'll do."
Wasn't Fraser's ex-wife also within the TV series?
Yeah.
Right? She was, wasn't she?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was that house.
Okay.
That house. That
I remember
where the famous dinner scene that, you know, in that house, the one. Yeah, so I sold that house.
Okay. What's the most expensive house you've sold?
I've represented one at 75. I've sold, we didn't get that one over the line. 30, I've done a bunch in the 30s, 36, 33, 33, 30, bunch in the teens, 20s. Yeah, been very lucky.
Are you still selling property?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have to.
So personally speaking, so you
Yeah.
tell me family.
Yes, I met my wife in 2007, and then we reconnected in 2011 and got married shortly after that. We've got two beautiful kids.
British?
She's Canadian. She's
Okay.
Canadian. Name's Polly Shannon, and Polly's love of my life. I've won the lottery, Alfredo.
Yeah.
Absolutely won the lottery. Yeah, 100%.
You've just been traveling around some places in Europe, no?
We've been, well, I wanted to try, and I love living in this US, I do, but I do miss Europe and its culture, and the things that you take for granted when you're here. When you're away for a long time, you miss those. And so any chance I get to bring the kids over and see some of the bigger cities, you know, I want to grab those. So we've done, you know, we do London every time. We did Paris a few years ago. This year we did Venice and Rome, and the kids it was worth the price of admission just to see their wide eyes looking around at everything. It was magnificent. Yeah.
And tell me about you and Marbella at the moment. Do you have a house here? Do you stay with friends?
No. I mean, candidly, you know, a big motivation for this business is to give myself the option to maybe come back and either partly or in full and let the kids have. I love the lifestyle here, and you know, I don't know. The kids are getting to an age now where I don't know if where we are is necessarily the best place. It could be. It's not. You know, LA especially gets a really bad rap because it's easy to knock it. But LA's great.
Whereabouts do you live?
We live in Venice, so we're right near the ocean. And I've lived all over. I've lived in Beverly Hills, lived in West Hollywood, lived in Sherman Oaks. Didn't like that, so we left and we came to Venice about 8 years ago.
Just out of curiosity, how does the lifestyle compare between Beverly Hills and that area and
It's
here?
very, very, very similar. It's actually, if you go there, LA maybe not so much, but if you go up to somewhere like Santa Barbara, you could be in Marbella. Like, it's very similar. The mountains behind, size, everything else. But the climate is similar. LA is like 100 Marbellas, I would say. It's big, it's vast. But actually the communities are small, like the networks there are small. Even though it's just this big sprawl, you do bump into the same people in a lot of the same places. And it offers a very similar lifestyle. And it's been, all my dreams have come true in LA, Alfredo. So I'm very fortunate with it.
And one question: you've been doing this for quite some time, and you were here in 2000 or 2001. The qualities of the Costa del Sol lifestyle, sunshine, connections, all that has pretty much been the same for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But in the last 5 years, 4 years, 5 years since COVID, this interest from the US to Marbella and Spain generally, but also Marbella specifically, I can't put my finger on why now.
I don't know either. I mean, I've got two friends that have bought homes here. Like there's it's and that's just again like in my network that actually have homes here, second homes here. And I don't know. I think the Puente Romano's got a big thing to do with it. I think what the Shamoons have done there is astonishing and brilliant. I mean, that whole complex now and what it offers and the standard of the the entertainment, the food, everything, I think is on par with anywhere. I think you can hold that up against anywhere. Obviously, the beach, the nightlife, the entertainment things. If you want that, that's comparable to anywhere. Probably better than LA, actually, I would say. And you can obviously have the quiet village, access as well as there's a lot to be excited about here with those things.
Right. Okay.
And I think maybe just again with social media, it's become more of it. It was never one of those that, for whatever reason, didn't seem to be one of those places that got mentioned in the same breath as the other locations in Europe. And that's to, at least from what I can see. Maybe the algorithm is just feeding me what I want to see, but it looks like Marbella is getting, talked about in the same breath.
So what's next? What's the next steps now for the NLS?
So we want to continue to scale and make sure that we get enough. We want to be very deliberate about areas. There's no point us scattering across Spain initially. We want to make sure that we can activate and deliver value, first of all, to Marbella and to Mallorca as well. Actually, we have great relationships in Mallorca and a similar, dynamic there. And so that's the next step. And then once we're delivering that value to the agents and they're using it and they're getting what they need out of it, we'll then start sending the traffic and turning that on from the US and candidly everywhere else. Like we want it to be the place where you have the most compelling user experience, both buyers, sellers, and agents.
And why wouldn't you just move here and sell 20 million euro houses here and have an easier life? Seems like a sucker for punishment.
I love doing that, by the way. I love selling houses. I have an entrepreneurial itch that I have to scratch, and I'm motivated by trying to build a business, as I say, that works and that people really embrace and celebrate. That is very much something that I want to do. So,
3 agencies that are here aside from the agency that you have, that you know of, that you think highly of. From what you see, professionalism.
Oh yeah,
you could give
Solvia, Panorama. I think the guys at Norma Frank actually are doing a great job. Their office is beautiful. The stuff they're building, I think, is really good. They've got great guys there. Engel and Volkers, obviously, their numbers. I mean, all those guys. I think their numbers that they're putting up. That was what I started to see that like a few years ago. I was going, that's a lot. And so I think the guys at Home Run are doing an amazing job with their marketing. I think they're really giving those other guys a run for their money. And I like the branding and the positioning that they're doing. I'm very fond of the guys at Panorama, obviously Chris and Alex over there. I think to be able to have the longevity that they've had through what, especially, I mean, all the people that were around when I was around, apart from them, practically have gone. Ocean, Interrealty, Viva, the 3 big ones, Andalusian Dream Homes, all capitulated when it all went.
You must see some of your old Ocean Estates colleagues owning companies here, agencies here, no? Because
I did.
that does come up in conversation occasionally when I speak to somebody from an agency.
Yeah.
It seems to there was 3 or 4 mega agencies back in those days, wasn't there?
right.
And a lot of those people have their own agencies now that work there.
Yeah,
And you
I
see the
mean-
rosters of the names, you think, oh yeah, I know him, I know her.
I mean, look, that was, you ask anybody that was in that company from 2000 to 2004, let's say, they had the time of their lives. It was a very, very, very special place. Everyone, you know, was relatively young. We could work hard and we could play hard and we could do and we did. And it was, you know, between Clive and Alistair Ellis, whether you loved them or you loathed them, a lot of people did both, you know, they were very effective in terms of the training and in terms of, you know, how we did our job. I think they dropped the ball. They were surrounded by the best talent on the coast, I would say. Like, you know, take me out of it, there was a bunch of guys and girls there that were really, really, really impressive. And they just kind of sucked as much out of them as they could and then let them go instead of really, you know,
Nurturing.
yeah. And they could have built, I think, a really, 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 like maybe even a global brand. I mean, the branding was great. It was a really special time. And I'm very, very, very grateful for it.
Who were the other big players at the time
When I was there?
Yeah.
Big players in terms of
In
the
the market,
agents?
in the market.
In the
No, no,
market.
in the
Well, it was Viva.
Yeah,
Viva
States.
Realty. And they would probably say that they did better, but I know they didn't. We were the best guys down there, 100%.
How about MRI? Was that around at all?
Dara came, yeah. He was. I mean, I think he worked for us for like 5 minutes and then set up his own. I mean, God, I mean, look, again, whether you like him or you loathe him, you've got to tip your hat to what he's done. I mean, I think he owns Peterborough, does he now?
Yeah,
And
football
he lives
club.
and he's in Florida. I don't follow him, so I don't know, but I certainly respect the hustle.
A lot of big personalities from that era.
A lot of, well, the ones that came, probably the best ones was David Honeyman's with Peter Perfect there with Andalusian.
I know
Dream Homes.
David. Yeah.
Yeah, so that when they came on, they were doing it right. They were probably the guys that I was most worried about, if I was worried about anybody, and maybe the team that I would have gone to if I stayed. I would say, I like David a lot.
Okay. Any final words about our conversation today? You want any message to agents or anybody in the marketplace?
I would say that obviously I'd love everybody to come and have a go on the NLS. If you don't like it,
How do they do that?
you just go to the NLS.com, click on become a member. It's free. So and you'll get 6 months free. And if we need to have more than 6 months, it will. As I say, it's there. I want agents to try it, give them value, see the tools that we're providing that the other portals don't do, see why they're important, and hopefully give them a place that makes them more effective and more profitable.
That's a good soundbite to end on.
There you go.
Thank you, Chris.
My pleasure. It's great to see you, Alfred. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.